Heather Locklear. Nobody did ruthless like Amanda Woodward. She walked into Melrose Place and basically turned the show into her playground. Rate bumps followed, Golden Globe nods rolled in, and every Best TV Villains list kept her name near the top for good reason. According to Entertainment Weekly, Amanda sits among the all-time iconic TV queen bees, and Rolling Stone later called her one of TV's greatest villains. Even producers have said Aaron Spelling considered Locklear his lucky penny. Then, the headlines changed. 2018 brought arrests for domestic violence and battery on officers, and in 2019, she pleaded no contest to multiple misdemeanors and was ordered to residential treatment. The work slowed to a crawl. The talent didn't go anywhere, but the momentum did. Robert Knepper. As T-Bag on Prison Break, he was nightmare fuel with a drawl, the kind of villain casting directors remember. When #MeToo broke, old allegations resurfaced and 4 more women came forward in The Hollywood Reporter. Warner Bros. Ran an internal inquiry tied to iZombie and said they found no evidence of on-set wrongdoing, so he finished that season. But the damage was done. By the next year, the CW boss clarified his contract was always for 1 season and he didn't return. The result? One of TV's most iconic characters suddenly became radioactive. Not because the performance dipped, because the risk spiked. Lilo Brancato Jr. He had a Star is Born start in A Bronx Tale and slid perfectly into The Sopranos as Matt Bevilacqua, a wannabe tough guy who was easy to hate. But in 2005, a botched burglary ended with an NYPD officer killed by Brancato's accomplice. Brancato was acquitted of murder but convicted of attempted burglary and got a 10-year sentence. He left prison on parole at the end of 2013, talking redemption and sobriety. But that early career heat? Gone. That's how quickly promising villain turns into cautionary tale. Felicia Snoop Pearson. No one, and I mean no one, came colder than Snoop on The Wire. Stephen King literally called her perhaps the most terrifying female villain to ever appear in a television series. That's Stephen King. The performance was raw because, well, she was brought straight off the Baltimore streets and put in front of a camera. She kept working, did reality TV and music videos, and pops up in interviews talking about leaving the street life, but she never parlayed that iconic TV villainy into mainstream stardom. It's the curse of being too real. Hollywood didn't quite know what to do with her beyond be Snoop again. Nicolette Sheridan. As Edie Britt on Desperate Housewives, she was TV's suburban chaos agent, petty, funny, and lethal with a one-liner. Then the show killed her off and everything went to court. Sheridan sued ABC and showrunner Mark Cherry, alleging she was retaliated against after complaining about an alleged battery. A jury deadlocked. The judge declared a mistrial, and on appeal, the court said it wasn't a wrongful termination because the contract wasn't renewed. Years of headlines later, she was working, but not at the same altitude. She eventually popped over to play Alexis on Dynasty, a solid turn, yet the lightning in a bottle moment on Wisteria Lane never really reignited. Michael Mooney. If you know soaps, you know Adam Newman, a boardroom villain so good he made people yell at their TV. Mooney looked like a guy who could ride daytime heat to primetime. Instead, in 2013, he was fired from The Young and the Restless amid widely reported allegations he groped a co-star. Allegations he denied and for which no criminal charges were filed. The network never aired a full play-by-play, but the industry whispers were enough. Mooney's denials didn't change the calculus. For casting execs, he was a headache they didn't need. That's how a marquee soap heavy loses a second act. Sarah Clark. Nina Myers in 24 gave America one of its great TV betrayals. That reveal was seismic. People stood up off their couches. Clark should have ridden that twist into a decade of prestige baddie gigs. She kept working. Covert Affairs, Bosch, Twilight, but nothing hit like Nina. And here's the hard truth of playing an all-timer. Sometimes the role gets more famous than you do. Fans swapped "Remember when Nina turned?" stories on forums for years. Casting directors, meanwhile, quietly moved on to the next face. Clark didn't blow it so much as get trapped in the shadow of her own perfect villain. Paul Johansson. Dan Scott on One Tree Hill is one of those villains who makes your skin crawl and steals every scene. The guy was built for a second life as a high-end TV heavy. He chose a different path, jumping behind the camera to direct Atlas Shrugged Part 1. The movie tanked with critics and scraped only a few million at the box office on a reported 8-figure budget. He's been candid about the personal toll of playing Dan in the years after. The result? A beloved villain actor who took a big swing off the main road and never quite found the same pop culture altitude again. Monica Keena. Abby Morgan on Dawson's Creek was the chaotic mean girl who made the whole harbor town clutch its pearls, and Keena had the timing to make it sing. Then came the curveball. According to creator Kevin Williamson, Keena won it out, and Abby was killed off in season 2. Roles kept coming, but not that kind of visibility. Years later, tabloid noise around a tumultuous relationship didn't help. Keena's not missing talent, she just walked away from the role that could have cemented her as an A-tier TV antagonist. Exit too early, and sometimes the door doesn't swing open again. Ed Westwick. In early Gossip Girl, Chuck Bass is basically Manhattan's charming supervillain, the teen drama version of he's toxic but he owns every scene. That sets you up for movie leads, high-end TV, the whole thing. Then, in 2017, multiple women accused Westwick of sexual assault. The BBC recast him out of Ordeal by Innocence and reshot his scenes. Prosecutors in Los Angeles later declined to file charges, citing insufficient evidence, and he denied all allegations. But the industry part? It hit pause hard. The lesson, again, a scandal can erase a runway, even when cases don't move forward. By the way, if you're into deep dive TV history like this, hit subscribe. It helps a ton. Thanks. Now let's slow the roll and talk pattern. It's not one type of mistake, it's a dozen different ways to kick your own ladder out. Bad press versus big talent. Heather Locklear is the prototype. She had a character people loved to hate, a pop culture staple, and producers on record saying she juiced ratings just by showing up. That should carry you into your 50s with a comfy list of juicy roles, but once the headline switched to arrests and court dates, producers got squeamish. A courtroom is the last thing a network wants trending under its new fall premiere. Talent didn't vanish, appetite did. Allegations, investigations, and the new reality. Robert Knepper's path is the 2017 case study. A studio can say no evidence of wrongdoing on this set, and still the phone stops ringing, because the calculus has changed. Audiences, advertisers, and execs all have veto power. Even when he finished his iZombie arc, he didn't stick around. Same dynamic with Ed Westwick. Allegations denied, prosecutors declined to charge, but BBC still reshot an entire 3-part drama to remove him. Networks will spend millions to dodge a reputational hit. A role so good it shrinks your world. Sarah Clark's Nina Myers is the classic trap. You become the face of duplicity, and every script that follows feels like Diet Nina. The audience can't unknow what it knows, which is great for the rerun checks, not so great for reinvention. It's not blew it, it's the cruel gravity of having a signature villain early. Real-life collisions. Lilo Brancato's story is harsher than a PR crisis. One night and a terrible chain of decisions ended a cop's life and landed Brancato in prison. And with it, the career that once looked wide open. He's spoken about sobriety and trying to do better. Hollywood, though, rarely hands the keys back after something that public and that painful. Exit timing. Monica Keena asked off a hit at 19, got her wish, and watched the machine roll forward without her. That's not a moral failing, that's just how fast TV moves. The audience gets trained to see you every week, and when you vanish, fresher faces take your slot. The pivot that doesn't land. Paul Johansson tried to steer his fame into directing, totally valid, but Atlas Shrugged Part 1 was a lightning rod and a commercial thud. Critical pans stack up in search results for years, and suddenly the guy who gave you a top-tier villain isn't the call first pile anymore. And yes, fans still argue on Reddit about Dan Scott being an all-timer. That part is permanent, but the industry momentum is a different beast. And a few more you asked us to dig into. Shannon Doherty. Technically not a capital V villain, but the 90s bad girl energy around Brenda Walsh made 90210 pop. And then the set drama legend swallowed her whole. She left Beverly Hills 90210 amid reports of conflict and later exited Charmed after tension with co-stars. She kept working, fought like hell through cancer, and became a symbol of resilience. But in terms of TV legend arc, those early exits turned a rocket into a roller coaster. Her death in 2024 was reported widely, a heartbreaking end to a complicated story. Felicia Snoop Pearson. Fans still debate her scenes on Reddit, swap King's quote, and marvel at how a non-actor came in and hijacked their dreams. But you hear Pearson in interviews talk about walking away from the street to act, and you get why the ascent stalled. Real life is complicated, healing takes time, and Hollywood rarely knows how to invest in that. She's iconic forever. The legend lane just never opened. What it all adds up to. If this was just about skill, we'd be talking about Locklear, Knepper, Clark, Johansson, Sheridan, Pearson, Kina, Mooney, Brancato, and Westwick as Hall of Fame TV villains who aged into prestige cameos and buzzy returns. The performances were there. The characters are already carved into the culture. But the legend tier needs more than a great role. It needs spotless timing, clean headlines, strategic pivots, patient reps, and plain old luck. Miss any two of those, and the elevator stops between floors. The lesson? TV can make you famous overnight, and it can also quietly change the locks while you're still celebrating. If you're into this kind of deep dive storytelling, subscribe. We've got a lot more on the way. And if we missed your favorite 90s, 2000s villain who crashed out, drop a comment with your pick. We'll read them all.